country. So you see, you need to study the overall writings of Ellen White to know a better idea what she's trying to say. School outside the city is the ideal one. But the reality is not always like the ideal one. It is the same thing like vegetarian. It is the ideal one. But Ellen White sometimes, when she was in traveling, she didn't get the food that she wants. So sometimes she ate a little meat. Ideal and reality. How to know the ideal and reality? Not only based on 1, 2, 3, even 10 quotation. Study about one subject in the whole writings of Ellen White. And how you can do it? Through the website, it is easy. Just type school and cities. School, outside the city. And you may gather all the informations. Now it's much easier than 10 or 20 years before to study about Ellen White's writings. So, principle number 6 is to identify the ideal and reality in the writings of Ellen White. So, now we come to number 7. Check the whole idea. Check the whole idea. Dynamic or static understanding. God wants us all to have common sense. And He wants us to reason from common sense. Circumstances alter conditions. Circumstances change the relation of things. For example, this is about act. In one quotation, it was written in 1881. Ellen White writes this: their children should not be allowed to make eggs their diet. For this kind of food, eggs and animal flesh feeds and inflames the animal patience. But in Ministry of Healing, page 320, Ellen White says, those who live in new countries or in poverty-stricken districts where fruits and nuts are scarce should not be urged to exclude milk and eggs from their dietary. In the case of persons whose blood-making organs are feeble, especially if any offshoots, anti-Trinitarian idea. Well, why? I told you before, why they wrote to me saying we should not read the unpublished work. Because they said, well, true, there are 3 persons in the Godhead, but only 2 beings. But in Ellen White writings, there was one quotation that we can find in the unpublished writings of Ellen White in 1890s, saying that there are 3 beings in heaven. So, it is only one quotation, but it is in unpublished writings. So, that's why they said, don't read the unpublished writings. So, we can see now that reading the whole idea of Ellen White, identifying the ideal and the reality, principles and applications will help us to avoid when we go to extremes. The feet of the elephant. Oh, they try to describe elephant. One blind man says, elephant is like a pillar. Because the feet. he touches the feet. But another blind man said, no, 11 is like rope. Like a rope, because he touches the tail. Yeah, the tail. Oh, it is like rope. Another blind man says, no, 11 is like a spear, because he touches the ivory. Oh, the sharp one, and then become, oh, it's like a spear. And then the other one said, no, 11 is like a rubber, because he touches the ear, and it is very flexible. It's one of the blind men. They describe only a particular thing, not the overall. The same thing with theology. Elephant theology will always appear in Adventist history if we are not taught how to read the Bible and the spirit of prophecy in a balanced way. Yeah. The last thing. Well, now we come to the last point. Even though there are more, but I think for today, 8 ways how to understand Ellen White writings is enough for us. Consistency. Ellen White says, consistency is a jewel, and we all want it. Consistency in understanding, consistency in interpreting. It should be balanced, and it should be consistent. Well, the inconsistency example, for example, some of the offshoots says, we only read the writings of Ellen White that were published before 1915 and do not read her unpublished writings. While some, it is not consistent with the other truth, so we should have prejudice that maybe this teaching is not true. Determine the year, the day when Jesus will come. It is also one example inconsistency in theology, in the writings of Ellen White as well. So, by doing this, now we come to the conclusion. If there is apparent contradiction in the writings of Ellen White, it is in the understanding of the readers, not in the writings of Ellen White. So if we see there is apparent contradiction in Ellen White writings, the contradiction is not in the writings of Ellen White or in the writings of the biblical authors, but the misunderstanding, it is in the eyes of the readers. Because the readers, they do not know what is ideal and what is the reality. What is the principle, what is the applications. They do not know the historical context. They do not know the immediate and larger context. Because, for example, like egg, why Ellen White says in one place, you should eat egg. In the other place, Ellen White says, eat egg and not eat egg. It is not in the writings of Ellen White, but in the eyes of the readers. So if we see the apparent contradiction, make sure for yourself that it is not in the writings, but our understanding is not complete yet. So now, how to understand the writings of Ellen White in a balanced way? There are 8. What is the first one? To accept her writings as they come from the Lord. Number 2, let The writing speaks for themselves. Yeah. Number 3, observe the immediate and larger context. Number 4, examine the historical context. Number 5, identify it is a principle or applications. Number 6, ideal and reality. Number 7, check the whole idea. And number 8, consistency. Theology, a truth is consistent because God is consistent. If an understanding, an interpretation, or a theology is not consistent, so it is not studies. Well, you may download, you may share it to others, and I hope that it will be helpful for you while you're studying more in Ellen White writing and history of Seventh-day Adventists.